What adjectives could you use to describe chocolate cake? Or what if it was pasta? How about soup or ribs? What words for texture could you use? So how would you describe the foods that you just saw? Let's say you just had a delicious meal at a restaurant and somebody asked you, how was the chocolate cake? How was the lasagna? How was the soup? Would you just say, it was good, it was bad? Or would you have appropriate adjectives to describe the flavor and also the feel of the food or the texture? So the feel of the food is how it feels in your mouth. How would you describe the texture? So welcome back. I'm ESL teacher Lisa. Welcome to ESL Speaking Corner. Now, I'm going to give you different adjectives in today's class. I will put the adjective above my head, and I'll give you some examples as we go along and give you some definitions. So the first word I want to talk about today is sweet, and it's sometimes confused with savory. So sweet foods have a sugary flavor, such as cake, ice cream, chocolate, lollipops, and mangoes, all that good stuff. Savory foods have a spicy or salty flavor without being sweet. When I say spicy, I don't mean hot with heat. I mean spicy, meaning flavorful, a lot of ingredients. Many people say salty food when they mean savory food. Savory is used for food like lasagna, stew, salmon, hamburgers, and French fries. So remember, savory is without being sweet. Now, specifically salty, it's used to describe food that tastes too much of salt. It's usually used as a negative thing, although it could be good if you want the food to be salty. So for example, you could say, this popcorn is very salty, makes my lips burn. So in that case, there's too much salt. But maybe you want something to be salty. So for example, peanuts. Me personally, I love salty peanuts. I like when there's enough salt on it. So I can say, oh, these peanuts are salty. The next adjective is bitter. Bitter describes a strong and sometimes unpleasant flavor. It's the opposite of sweet. So coffee, very dark chocolate, beer, and maybe a citrus peel like lemon can be bitter. Tart. Tart describes it's a very sharp and acidic taste. Sour can also be used, but it often has a negative meaning when something is sour. Lemon, white wine, Greek yogurt, pickles, some raspberries, they're all tart foods. We might describe a cherry pie as being tart or lemon pie as something that's tart. Smoky describes foods that taste of smoked wood. So things like bacon, maybe even whiskey, lox, smoked salmon are all smoky foods. Okay, let's keep going. Our next adjective, rancid. Rancid describes the taste of food that has a strong or unpleasant smell or taste because it's no longer fresh. For example, milk. So somebody might say, how old is this milk? It smells rancid. We might even use the word spoiled. But rancid is a very strong word to use. Now, hot and spicy. Earlier I told you spicy could mean flavorful, like a lot of ingredients, but it's not necessarily hot with heat. So now I'm talking about spicy, hot. So spicy is a taste that makes one's mouth burn, maybe from strong chilies, like a chili sauce or chili pepper. So hot can be used to describe spicy food or food that has a very high temperature. So you have to make sure that you're being clear when you use the word spicy. So if you're in a restaurant, you might ask the waiter, oh, I want to try this dish, but is it spicy? So clearly you're not talking about hot with heat. You want to know if it's going to set your mouth on fire. So you can say this curry is hot, right? Or if you need clarification, you might be asked, do you mean spicy hot or temperature hot? So that is a lot of adjectives I gave you already to describe food. So try it. Try to impress your friends when you say, oh, I had this lasagna last night and it was savory. Okay, let's move on to textures. So textures, remember, is the way the food feels when you touch it, but really we're talking more about when you eat it, the feel in your mouth. So for example, creamy. Creamy foods are smooth, soft, and thick. While they're often made with things like milk or cream, they don't need to be. So even though the adjective is creamy, it doesn't mean that milk or cream is the actual ingredient. So for example, avocados can be described as creamy, also ice cream, macaroni and cheese, yogurt, melted chocolate, they're all creamy foods. Next one, crumbly. Crumbly describes foods that fall apart into small pieces when you eat or break it. For example, someone might say, I like to put crumbly cheese like gorgonzola and feta into a salad. Then we have crunchy. Crunchy foods have a hard texture and make a loud sound when chewed. So potato chips, nuts, biscotti, raw carrots, and the skin of fried chicken, are all crunchy foods. Next one. See my mouth, I'm getting hungry. It's affecting my voice. I need to eat some of these delicious foods I'm describing. Next one is greasy. Greasy foods taste very much of oil and usually leave oil behind. So some might say this pizza is so greasy that my entire plate is covered in oil. By the way, real pizza is not greasy. It's not very greasy. So you might be having some fake pizza there. So I grew up in New York, so I love New York pizza. It's really good pizza. Some of the best pizza I think you can get in the U.S. is in New York. Some people probably will disagree with me if you're not a New Yorker. Let's continue. Gooey. Gooey describes foods that are wet and sticky, often in a positive way. So you could say, my friend Tom loves gooey fudge sauce on top of his ice cream. Moist. Moist describes foods that are slightly wet and soft. So it could describe a cake, or like we saw in the beginning of the video, a moist chocolate cake. And then we have mushy. So mushy describes foods that are soft and wet, but usually it's used for food that is not meant to be soft. So when we said moist, that's usually a good thing, like chocolate cake should be soft, or like a brownie, maybe even just slightly wet and soft. But mushy is something that shouldn't be. So for example, if you have apples that are very old or fruit that's very old, you can say all the apples have gone mushy. They must be old. So again, it's something that shouldn't be wet and soft. So it's really gross to have food that's mushy when it's not designed to be or not cooked to be that way. So that covers textures. So we've covered different adjectives and also using different words for texture. So your homework assignment is to think about your favorite food, maybe a native dish in your home country, and learn to describe it. How would you describe it? So if you like, put in the comments just one sentence of a native dish from your country and use one of the adjectives that we had in this video. So what's a great dish to try if we visited your country? And use one of the adjectives or one of the adjectives for texture. See you in the next video. Please remember to like and subscribe. I always appreciate it.